Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. US President Donald Trump says there is a 25% chance his Friday meeting with Russian leader Vladimir Putin will not be successful. The American president made the comments in an interview with Fox News Radio. In the interview, Trump said the meeting is set up like a chess game and that it aims to lay the foundation for a follow-up summit, possibly involving Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He added that if he deems the Friday meeting a success, he will immediately call Zelensky and inform European leaders. Trump also said he would hold a press conference regardless of the result of the meeting, and that he was unsure whether the briefing following the Alaska summit would be held jointly with Putin. President Trump said that his main objective for Friday's talks with Vladimir Putin is to set the table for the next meeting, adding that it should take place shortly after today's summit in Alaska. When asked whether he would consider reducing military presence on NATO's eastern flank, specifically in Poland, to secure a ceasefire, he replied that such a proposal hasn't been put before him.
We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. Tomorrow, all I want to do is set the table for the next meeting, which should happen shortly. I'd like to see it happen very quickly, very shortly after this meeting. I'd like to see it actually happen maybe in Alaska where we just stay because it's so much easier. But I think that it's going to be very interesting. We're going to find out where everybody stands, and I'll know within the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, like we tend to find out, whether or not we're going to have a good meeting or a bad meeting. And if it's a bad meeting, it'll end very quickly. And if it's a good meeting, we're going to end up getting peace in the pretty near future.
And would you support or agree to reducing NATO troops in Europe, in countries like Poland, in order to get Russia to agree to a peace deal?
That hasn't been put before me, and I'll think about that for later, but it has not been put before me. Go ahead.
A comprehensive solution to the war between Russia and Ukraine may take some time to work out, says US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. To achieve peace in Ukraine, the Alaska talks between Trump and Putin should include security guarantees for Ukraine, as well as resolve territorial disputes, Rubio added.
Well, to achieve a peace, I think we all recognize that there'll have to be some conversation about security guarantees. There'll have to be some conversation about, territorial disputes and claims and what they're fighting over. All these things will be part of a comprehensive thing. But I think the president's hope is to achieve some stoppage of fighting so that those conversations can happen. These are tiny technical things that take some time to work out.
A pro-Ukrainian demonstration took place in Anchorage, Alaska, where President Trump will host the Russian leader Vladimir Putin for talks on Friday. Reports say several hundred people took part in the protest. The demonstrators held signs showing support for Ukraine. Some spoke to the media, saying the summit shouldn't be taking place at all. Other protesters, both against and in support of Trump, are expected to take place on Friday in Anchorage. The Trump-Putin meeting is the first of its kind since Russia launched its full-scale invasion on Ukraine. Amid higher hopes for the summit, the White House attempted to cool the enthusiasm down, saying this meeting will be more of a listening exercise. Russia and Ukraine have exchanged a set of prisoners of war. This time, Moscow and Kyiv swapped 84 prisoners each.
According to Ukraine's report, the group freed by Russia was made up of both civilians and soldiers. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said some of the freed prisoners have been in Russian custody since 2014. Zelensky emphasized that all freed prisoners need medical attention as well as serious rehabilitation. The Russian prisoners freed by Kyiv are all said to now be in Belarus, receiving medical and psychological help.
Fans of the Israeli football club Maccabi Haifa displayed a highly controversial banner during the club's Conference League game with the Polish club Raków Częstochowa. The banner, reading "Murderers since 1939", sparked controversy in Poland. President Karol Nawrocki and Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz took to social media to strongly criticize the Israeli fans' behavior. The head of the Polish Football Association called the banner a provocation and an attempt to falsify history. Polish authorities have called on UEFA to respond to the incident. The game took place in Hungary. Raków Częstochowa won the match, eliminating the Israeli club from the tournament. Russia is ramping up its hybrid operations against Poland. According to a deputy prime minister, one Polish city only narrowly avoided a major disaster as foreign hackers attempted to paralyze its water infrastructure. This was just the latest in a series of Russia's sabotage activities in Poland. Anastasia Janchenko has the story.
One of Poland's major cities narrowly avoided a large-scale cyber attack on critical water infrastructure, which could have left the city with a severe water outage.
An attack on the water and sewage company would primarily bring consequences that make ordinary everyday life impossible for people, for families, for those living in apartment blocks and small houses. All of this could paralyze normal life and result in us being unable to use the infrastructure.
According to the Ministry of Digital Affairs, Poland registers around 300 Russian cyber attacks every day, with numbers growing. In recent months, Polish companies and institutions have increasingly become targets.
Poland is the most targeted country in cyberspace, with Russia spearheading these efforts. It attacks critical infrastructure and encourages people to cooperate with Russian intelligence services, paying them 3,000 to 4,000 euros for it.
Russia has recently intensified its presence in Poland, both online through cyber attacks and on the ground through acts of sabotage. Poland has barely moved past the scandal over a Max Koresz concert, where flags of the Ukrainian insurgent army linked in Poland to World War II-era killings of Poles were displayed when another controversy erupted, again targeting Polish-Ukrainian relations.
Poland's internal security agency and police have detained a 17-year-old Ukrainian national accused of vandalizing monuments to victims of the Ukrainian insurgent army on orders from foreign intelligence.
The sabotage involved desecrating monuments, including the one in Domostov commemorating the Volhynian massacre, where a Ukrainian inscription, "Glory to Ukrainian Insurgent Army," and a banderit flag were placed. The penalty ranges from no less than 10 years to a maximum of life imprisonment.
The incident has already drawn a response from the Ukrainian embassy in Poland.
The embassy strongly condemns all disgraceful actions directed against memorial sites. We consider this a provocation by Russian special services aimed at creating tension between our nations.
Russia is trying to drive a wedge between Ukrainians and Poles at a time when support for Ukraine is very much needed, says Poland's Prime Minister.
Stirring up conflicts and hostility between Ukrainians and Poles is a very common tactic of foreign intelligence services. The Russians are counting heavily on being able to set Ukraine and Poland against each other.
Russia is not only launching cyber attacks, carrying out sabotage operations and disinformation campaigns. It is also trying to enter the political arena and gain a presence in the Polish parliament. Former presidential candidate Marek Włoch will merge in September with the Camp of Great Poland, a group whose members openly support Russia. The new party aims to enter parliament in 2027.
Fortunately, the majority of the political class states outright that Russia is a threat, that Russia is today the aggressor, and that Russia is also waging a cyber war against Poland.
This report for TVP World, Anastasia Janchenko.
Russian intelligence officials claim that the European Union wants to bring opposition leader Petr Modzior to power in Hungary. Andrzej Sadecki, head of the Central European Department at the Center for Eastern Studies, says that if the Russians wanted to support Viktor Orban ahead of next year's elections, their interference may backfire.
I suppose the intention is to influence the public But I think it can also easily backfire because Russia is in a way admitting that it's interfering in the domestic politics of Hungary. And it shows that actually, Orban was very often saying that sovereignty is a #1 priority for the country, to keep the sovereignty. There is a Office for Protection of Sovereignty created some time ago. And here we have a case where a foreign country basically, not only a foreign country, the intelligence, the secret services of a foreign country interferes in domestic affairs.
More and more Poles are interested in learning to shoot and keep a firearm at home. A new report shows a 600% hike in gun permit applications, a trend fueled by the ongoing war in Ukraine. Our defense correspondent Zuzanna Jurek reports on Poland's recent firearms craze.
Poland is rearming, and the trend appears to extend beyond the armed forces as applications for gun ownership permits have been skyrocketing in the country year on year. Last year alone, over 40,000 individual carry permits were issued nationwide.
The number of permits is increasing throughout the year, slowly but surely. So we are talking about tens of thousands of legal firearm owners in Poland. This is a huge spike, about 500 to 600% compared to what we had here a few years ago.
Psychologists cite prevention and personal freedom as some of the leading drivers behind the gun boom.
This brings a sense of security. That is a perception that owning a weapon makes them safe, even if they have not previously experienced any immediate or direct threat. People see the right to bear arms as a symbol of freedom and unfettered access to everything that a person can have access to.
And this need to feel prepared comes as no surprise for a country which sits on NATO's eastern flank with a war raging just across the border. 2022 marked a key turning point.
The increase in gun permit applications has been significant, especially in the wake of the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. Initially, the increase was so large that we couldn't keep up with the number of applicants interested in joining the club.
In situations like those we see even across our eastern border, having a population familiar with firearms ultimately increases the country's ability to defend itself.
Though those close to the matter say that firearms are primarily the domain of men, more and more women and children find themselves at shooting ranges. For many, starting young is what inspired their passion.
My enthusiasm for firearms began in childhood, as my dad was an officer in the armed forces and I was familiar with weapons from an early age.
But even though the number of permits issued is rapidly rising, the path to obtaining one is still far from easy.
You must be at least 21 years old, have no criminal record, pass the appropriate psychological tests, and have a valid reason for owning a firearm. That's what the law says. The reasons vary. It could be for training purposes, personal protection, or building a collection. Sometimes, depending on which of these reasons motivates you, you may need to belong to a club. Next, you need to pass a shooting course. This process can take anywhere from 3 to 8 months.
Despite permit issuance hitting year-on-year highs and gun sellers seeing record sales,
people buy a lot of guns right now for a couple of years now. They want to train, they want to feel safe.
Poland still lags behind its European counterparts by number of weapons per 100 people, coming in at the very last place on the list. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
The Panama Canal will soon launch a tender for the construction and operation of 2 ports, a source involved in the preparations said on Thursday. The Panama Canal Authority is preparing to launch a competitive tender in the first quarter of next year, aiming to attract interest from companies for the construction and operation of 2 new ports within the canal zone. As over 80% of global trade by volume is transported via maritime routes, the expansion underscores the canal's critical role in international shipping. Governed by an international treaty, the canal guarantees equal access to vessels from all nations in both peace and wartime, reinforcing its status as a strategic global trade corridor. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news, updates and commentary.